Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Dakota.
Here.
Councilor Elliott. Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
The chair would like to recognize Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm requesting a moment of silence with darkened chambers for Raymond Keene, a devoted father, grandfather, father of Lieutenant David Keene of the Lowell Fire Department. Mr. Keene served this country with pride and distinction in the United States Marine Corps. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. May we all rise in a moment of silence in darkened chambers. May he rest in peace. Thank you. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 9th meeting
So
for
moved.
acceptance. Motion by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor of accepting the minutes and place on file signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. City manager, communications from manager, responses to council motions and requests. Do we have anybody who would like to bring anything forward at this point? Hearing none, except the communication. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor
Thank you.
Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to suspend the rules to bring in something that Councilor Mendonça and I heard just last night at the Portuguese-American Veterans about that home that should be demolished, that...
Oh, the one on
Council-
Rogers Street, yeah.
No,
Central Street, okay.
Central Street.
Okay. Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Mercia, second by
Second.
Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor of suspension signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an opportunity and an occasion to attend a function at the Portuguese-American Civic Club on Central Street with Councilor Mendonça last evening. And, well, it was Sunday evening, and they were still concerned about the block next door to this Civic Center that Councilor Caulfield talked about. And I just want to know if there's an update from the solicitor's office.
I know that the acting building commissioner has been out. He, excuse me, I believe, put together an initial packet, and I will check with him in the morning, check on the status, and then send the council a written update. And the idea behind it is to get it before the council.
May I even say that they were so concerned about it being raised that they know that our finances are tough. They even offered to pay for the demolition themselves, not to burden the city in any means. You know, I said it isn't actually about that. It's about trying to notify the proper people and not being sued. I mean, the taxes are current, even though nobody's living on that side of the block. But the fact remains, it would probably be a lot easier if they were delinquent, but they're not. So there's a fine line there that we have to follow. But they are concerned, and we said that we'd bring it up.
Sure, and also DPD and the point person at DPD staff that oversees a lot of the demolition projects. She has been in the building as well, and I know that when it was originally being looked at, the most recent time, there was a concern on the necessity to redo the reports, and so as far as I know, that has happened, and I'll check on the status of it right now, but it should be coming along right along.
Thank you. Thank you very much if we could get a report on that. And Mr. Mayor, while we're under suspension, I could probably take a point of personal privilege to say that with the devastation that took place with the flooding over the past few days, I had an occasion to go to the Rosemont section of the city, and I want to tell you that we do hear talk about, different types of investigations and this, that, and the other, and it kind of brings a black eye to the city or whatever, but I can tell you how proud I am. And I know people say, oh, these are city workers, they get paid. Yes, they do, and I know that they get paid, but I think that what they've been through these few days was second to none for professionalism, teamwork, hard work. When they put up that portable dam on the other side of Beaver Street, it was remarkable to see them out there in the rain and the cold and the dampness and putting and working together as a team to make sure that people were, protected in their homes and things like that. I was just very, very proud of everyone, the precision, the professionalism, the police, the fire, all the departments, the water, wastewater, land, and buildings, these crews from the sign shop, all working together as one. I was just so proud, and I just had to say that. I know they get paid, but I think they deserve a lot of credit. So let me just say that, and I congratulate them very much. Thank you.
While we're under suspension, Council Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I also want to convey my thanks to the manager, his staff, and every city employee that had to put in at least a 14-hour day yesterday. And I was on New York Street. I was in the Rosemont neighborhood. I was in the Clay Pit Brook neighborhood. And as Council Mercia indicated, the police, the fire department, they were there. And matter of fact, I'm going to bring it up later on this evening, there were people evacuated on Pratt Avenue by the fire department. It was on Channel 7, 5, 4. But the other departments, wastewater, water utility, they kept those plants open and operating. We almost lost the pumping station on Princeton Boulevard, but thanks to the quick thinking of a city employee, he moved the storm drain. But DPW, Mr. Manager, and Parks and Recreation, can't say enough about those departments, and the neighbors who were affected by the flood on New York Street. Young teenagers and kids and women all carrying sandbags, putting sandbags in front of people's windows and doors and so forth. You could just see the city coming together, but the city workers make it work. They really do, and I just marvel at their instinct and their commitment. When someone needs some help, they're there, and it was very, very obvious yesterday. And I spoke to T.J. McCarthy last night. I think he put in a 14 or 15-hour day along with many, many other people, and they're still concerned about the river cresting and the flooding and so forth. But I just, from you, Mr. Manager, on down, thank you. It was a great job, a great effort, and that's what this city's made of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Going back to Councilor Mercia's, would you like to put that in the form of a motion regarding that building?
Yes, thank you.
Motion by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Mendonça to get a report from the city solicitor. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Moving back onto the regular agenda, again, under communications, do we have anybody that would like to address any of the issues in our packets, responses to council motions, requests, etc.? Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a detailed response to my motion regarding the Tanner Street, and I just want to thank the manager and DPD. It's very detailed, and it looks like it's something that should be probably reviewed sometime down the road. It's a manpower and funding issue in terms of getting a plan together, so I appreciate the effort that went into the response, and have a better understanding, and I'll probably bring it up in another 6 or 9 months to put it back on them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, motion to accept the communications and place on file by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next item on the agenda, in City Council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to accept a gift of $2,500 from Lowell Heritage Partnership Incorporated to be used for the restoration of the Abraham Lincoln Monument in Lincoln Square at the intersection of Lincoln and Chelmsford Streets. Whereas the Lowell Heritage Partnership Incorporated desires to donate $2,500 for costs associated with materials and labor for the restoration of the Abraham Lincoln Monument, and whereas the City of Lowell desires to accept the gift of said $2,500 for costs associated with materials and labor for the restoration of the Abraham Lincoln Monument, now therefore be it voted that the city manager be, and he is hereby authorized in the name of the City of Lowell, to accept a gift in the amount of $2,500 from Lowell Heritage Partnership Incorporated for the restoration of the Abraham Lincoln Monument in Lincoln Square at the intersection of Lincoln and Chelmsford Streets pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Be it further voted that we, the members of the City Council of the City of Lowell, jointly and severally do hereby commend and officially extend the gratitude of the City of Lowell to the Lowell Heritage Partnership Incorporated for the generosity displayed through the donation of the aforesaid funds to the City of Lowell for the restoration of the Abraham Lincoln Monument. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift of $2,500 from Lowell Heritage Partnership Incorporated to be used for the restoration of the Abraham Lincoln Monument in Lincoln Square at the intersection of Lincoln and Chelmsford Streets. Any questions, discussions? Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Paul Marion is here, who probably would like to speak. We talked about this last year, and
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Marion, 44 Highland Street. I'm happy to be here tonight representing the Lowell Heritage Partnership. The president, Dick Lockhart, wasn't able to be here, so I'm representing the group. The Lowell Heritage Partnership is the organization that published this guide to Lowell's neighborhoods a few years ago. It's an alliance of about 20 organizations that are dedicated to enhancing the nature, architecture, and culture in Lowell. Our most recent project was the installation of the historic bell at the intersection of Prescott and Central Streets there. And last year, there was a lot of talk about Abraham Lincoln. It was the bicentennial of his birth. The university sponsored the Lincoln Douglas play. And around that time, it came to our attention that the Lincoln Monument in Lincoln Square in the Highlands needed some help. I spoke to then Mayor Caulfield and Manager Lynch and said I thought the Heritage Partnership would be willing to help out. We discussed it and voted to commit $2,500 to the project. We feel it's important historically. That monument, interestingly, it was 100 years old last year. It was installed on the centennial of Lincoln's birth, and if you read it, you see it was paid for with pennies collected by the children, the school children of Lowell, and of course Lincoln School is right there too. So we're looking forward to this project being completed, and in a way, this is a kind of preamble to several years of Civil War historical events in Lowell starting in 2011, and this I think is fitting, coming right on the eve of the Lincoln bicentennial. So we're happy to be working with the city on this and hope we can do more projects like this. And I want to thank Steve Stoll and the manager and the former Mayor Caulfield and Henry for helping us get to this point.
Great.
And Mark, we're going to hand out, we brought some neighborhood guides. We have some, they're a little bit dated. The list of the restaurants is a little bit dated, but everything else is good. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, very much. Any further questions, comments? Motion by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Martin to accept the gifts of $2,500. Roll call.
Counselor Broderick?
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield?
yes.
Counselor Dakota?
Yes.
Counselor Elliott?
Yes.
Counselor Martin?
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça?
Yes.
Counselor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Kenjal Corporation doing business as Lowell Quick Mart to encroach upon the City of Lowell property at 627 Chelmsford Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows. The city manager is hereby authorized to enter into a license agreement with Kinjal Corporation doing business as Lowell Quick Mart to encroach upon the city of Lowell property at 627 Chelmsford Street for an overhang awning to the extent of, and more particularly described in Exhibit A, attached hereto and made a part of this license agreement. Said license shall be predicated upon adequate insurance coverage, which coverage shall be kept in force so long as said encroachment continues under this license, and that in the event of a sale or transfer of said property, that said license shall be assignable or transferable to any successor of the license herein, subject to the provisions of said license agreement. In the event that said insurance coverage shall be canceled or lapses without being renewed or replaced, then said license hereunder shall be forthwith terminated, and licensee shall have to cease and desist from such encroachment. Said license shall be in accordance with the form or substantially the form attached hereto. There's no objection. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Kinjal Corporation doing business as Lowell Quick Mart to encroach upon the city of Lowell property at 627 Chelmsford Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Caulfield, second by Council Mendoza. Roll call.
Counselor Broderick?
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield?
Yes.
Counselor Dakota?
Yes.
Counselor Elliott?
Yes.
Counselor Martin?
Yes.
Counselor Mendoza?
Yes.
Counselor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
9 yes.
Next item on the agenda is communication from the city manager addressed to Dear Mayor Milonazo and members of the city council. Pursuant to the authority vested in me by city manager, it is with pleasure that I am appointing the following persons to the Green Building Commission. David Coach, 18 Mill Street, Lowell. Christopher Bartlett, 73 Crosby Street, Lowell. Luis Lobo, 15 Douglas Road, Lowell. And David Logvin, 38 Starbird Street, Lowell. Since confirmation by the city council is not required for these appointments, this letter is notification of such appointments. I have attached their resumes for your review. I'd be happy to answer any inquiry you may have concerning these appointments. Very truly yours, Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager.
Accept the communication
placed on file by Council Caulfield, second by Council Mercia. All those in favor of accepting the communication placed on file signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Thank you. Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment, looking through the resumes of some of the people that are appointed, at least tonight, to this commission, it's really very impressive. It's not, we don't always realize, I think, the varied backgrounds that people in the city have, and these people willing to offer and give their time, I think, speaks well. They're highly credentialed, and others, have lived here for many, many years. Others are relative newcomers, but they all have unique things to offer, and I think we're fortunate to have people like this that are willing to step forward and give their time. So I know all my colleagues are appreciative of those efforts, but something just struck me looking through this group tonight because it's particularly varied and unique, but positive nonetheless. So thank you.
Thank you, Council Martin. Next item on the agenda, again, communication from City Manager, reappointment to Disability Commission. Pursuant to the authority vested in me as City Manager under Chapter 75 of the Acts of 1983, Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, and the Code of the City of Lowell, Chapter 9, Article 9, Section 9-28, I am reappointing as of February 24, 2010, Ron Lastman of 213 Burnham Road, Lowell, to a new 3-year term, which term shall expire February 24th, 2013, or such time thereafter until a successor is appointed and qualified to the Lowell Commission on Disability. Under the above referenced ordinance, confirmation by the City Council is required and is hereby requested. I would be happy to answer any inquiry you may have concerning this appointment. Very truly yours, Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Move approval by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Murphy. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Broderick?
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield?
Yes.
Counselor Dakota?
Yes.
Counselor Elliott?
Yes.
Counselor Martin?
Yes.
Counselor Mendoza?
Yes.
Counselor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
9 yeas.
The last communication under the City Manager's portion of the agenda, we are accepting a resignation from the Solid Waste Recycling Committee. This letter acknowledges receipt of your letter in which you resign as a member on the Solid Waste Recycling Advisory Committee. This letter is addressed to David Main, 26 Harlem Street in Lowell. Your resignation is hereby accepted. I am filing your resignation and its acceptance thereof with the city clerk as required by law, and also forwarding copies as a communication to the City Council. The City of Lowell appreciates your service as a member of the Solid Waste and Recycling Advisory Committee, and on its behalf, I extend thanks. Very truly yours, Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Accept the communication placed on file by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Dakota. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Any subcommittee reports this evening? Hearing none, moving on to the agenda. We are at the motions part of the agenda. First motion by Councilor Caulfield. Request the city manager to report and inform the council on plans to address the possible 5% reduction in local aid in the city's fiscal 2011 city budget. Seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's a topic and an issue that I don't think any one of us want to discuss, but we have to. And when I filed the motion last week, the Senate and the House was looking at a 5% reduction. And the House Chair and the Senate Chair have met and agreed a 4% reduction, but from what I've been told, that was never voted on. It was just a compromise. So that could be discussed on the floor of the House and the Senate, and amendments made to it and so forth, and it's an election year, et cetera. And I've also been told that, to be on the safe side, you're probably really looking at a 5% reduction from the state, because in January or February, I don't think any of us want to be looking at any 9C cuts from the governor. And Mr. Manager, this is a very difficult issue. And last year we cut millions from the budget. The school department cut $8 million. And the sad thing about these cuts is Chapter 70 money is going to be reduced. The first time that I can remember that happening. And as the mayor would know, and the school committee and the superintendent knows, if Chapter 70 money was level funded, there'd be $3 million short. So if they're going to receive a $4.4 million reduction, from what I understand, and the city's going to receive almost $900,000, we do have an obligation to educate the children in the city, maintenance of effort and so forth. It's a dilemma, Mr. Manager, that I think we're all in, but I just want to let you know that we're all willing to roll up our sleeves and work with you and get through this dilemma, because there's other communities that are going to have to do the same thing. And 83% of the budget is personnel, but there's also other areas in the budget you have to look at as well. So if you want to elaborate on my motion, fine. If you don't, I just wanted to present it and bring something forward that in June, you say, oh my God, what's this all about? So I think it's wise and prudent to put it on the table now and present it, and look at areas where we can cut. Mr. Manager.
City Manager Lynch.
Councilor, you're correct in your numbers regarding the numbers that we received from the state. It's roughly 4.4 million of Chapter 70, and it's been a number of years since they've cut Chapter 70. As you know, they have cut the unrestricted local aid substantially over the last couple of years, between the 9C cuts and then the subsequent budget cuts last year. We are working on the budget now. We have been for some time, plugging numbers in, looking at different scenarios. We are utilizing those numbers right now, and it does show, given other pressures that we have, that we are looking at some serious, continued serious problems. We hope to, we expect to have the budget in the council's hand by late May, I would say, pretty much in line with the schedule that we've kept the last 3 years. But certainly before then, I anticipate coming into the council with sort of a status report of where we are with regards to estimated revenues and estimated expenses, and what we're doing to further reduce the gap between those two. So I will be doing that hopefully sometime in early to mid-April.
Mr. Manager, last week there was an article in the paper, and being the mayor with the school department, and I know Mayor Milanazzo is involved as much as I was. there are some things that have to be addressed. Buyback sick leave, all those perks, we just cannot afford to sustain ourselves and to keep going down that road. And the children, the most important thing of education is the classroom teacher, teaching those children. And you just can't manufacture money from a tree. It's not there. And all these perks, Mr. Mayor, you know, there has to be addressed. The unions have to come forward and work with us. And we just cannot continue to support some of these perks. And it's getting to the point where the people in this city are saying enough is enough. And so.
Manager Lynch?
If I could just address that, obviously that, all of that has to take place in the context of
I know.
collective bargaining, and that's a very involved process. As you know, in the non-school departments, the sick time buyback has been capped off, and there are limits placed upon that. The issue, one other issue, though, that I wanted to talk about that I think is significant with regards to the state budget, or the local aid and the state in general, regarding our municipal budget, municipal finances, really has to come back to the issue of health insurance. And we hear a lot of talk on Beacon Hill about municipalities having to make the tough decisions. And, you know, having been in this business now for some 30 years, I don't recall ever having easy decisions at the local level. But I will say that at the state level, we really need to get the state legislature and need the administration to support the same type of rules regarding health insurance that they operate under. When it comes to plan design, the GIC is able to, the state plan is able to make modifications at any time, mid-year, the beginning of the year. They don't have to go through a collective bargaining process to do that. That's in large part how the state balanced their budget this fiscal year, is they went in mid-year, made alterations to the health insurance plans that the state employees have, and the result of which was that they saved enough money to get through because they were operating on a deficit. We're looking for similar. Municipalities in Massachusetts are looking for similar rights. We're making a full court press right now to get the legislature and the administration to understand that we need those types of tools. Here in the city of Lowell, we estimate that if given those powers, we would be able to save $3 to $5 million. And if we were to either go to either get rid of Master Medical or to go to the GIC. And so, you know, I'll be coming in with a report to you on that in the near future. But I think as a body, if at some point in the future the council were to take it upon itself to send a clear message to the delegation that municipalities should have the same powers as the state does with regards to plan design, that would send an important, that would be you know, certainly a voice of support for what the municipalities are trying to do.
Mr. Manager, can I suggest that the law department draft a resolution? And we'll bring that forward at the next meeting. And that should be addressed. But to end my conversation on this issue, the city, the municipality, has a cap on buyback sick leave. It's $30,000. There's a cap. The school department, there's no cap at all. You could retire and receive $71,000 in sick leave buyback.
You can only buy back a third. You can only buy back a third. There's no cap, but you can only buy back a third.
Right. There's no cap in the school department. So that's what has to be really addressed. And it's probably a discussion for another time, but
Well, I will if I could, and then I'll recognize Council Elliott. We have our fourth Finance Subcommittee meeting tomorrow evening of the school committee. So we've started to, you know, get into the budget, and I'll certainly carry the message of this body back to the school committee. Council Elliott?
Thank you. I think that's all good points that Councilor Caulfield made. Mr. Manager, I did print out a copy of the Municipal Relief Act that the governor has proposed. It's a pretty lengthy document, and I went through it. I don't recall seeing anything relative to health insurance in there, as well as GIC, and I just want to, maybe your staff had a little bit more time to go through it. I mean, there were many good things in there that clearly can help, but I didn't see that as one of them. Am I Am I mistaken, or?
I think you're correct. That is correct. It's
Okay.
not in there. There was a proposal made a year ago by the governor to do something with health insurance. They set it up so they dropped it down to 50% as opposed to the 70% that it's at right now. And there were some other actions taken that would require that. It was very convoluted. It required that communities had to match up to the GIC in terms of cost, and if they didn't, then you could have your local aid cut.
Right.
That went nowhere. Then the legislature came up with their own plan of that would put in place essentially binding arbitration, so that if you were to meet with the unions and try to negotiate some modifications, if nothing were reached, then the city could implement. But then I believe the way it was drafted is that the two parties would go before an arbitrator, and the arbitrator could make an award to the employees. So that was something that wasn't met with a great deal of support at the municipal level, because essentially what could happen there is all of the savings that the city or town may receive could be lost to through a binding arbitration award. So again, the communities, there is a coalition that's been formed of municipalities that is pushing on this issue, and essentially, again, it comes down to a taxpayer issue. It's characterized, or it's put forward as a management versus labor issue. Ultimately, this is a taxpayer issue. It's the taxpayers that really are affected one way or the other with this type of with these costs. And what we need to do is be able to, we can negotiate, certainly willing to negotiate the contribution levels, but when it comes to, which I don't even think the state necessarily has to do that, or at least not the same way we do, but with regards to plan design, when the state decided they were no longer going to have a $5 copay, they just went up to 10, or went up to 15, or went up to 20. We still have a $5 copay because we can't get everyone to agree to do otherwise. And even there, it's a problem for us. Even if Mr. Moses and I were talking about this earlier, that even if we were to increase the copay here in this city, the effect would be that we would lower the cost of the HMO and the PPO, and the effect of which would be, because of the way it's written in some of the contracts, the master medical premium would become more affordable. And so therefore, we'd be pushing people, we wouldn't be getting the incentive to get people out of master medical into the HMO, we'd be doing just the opposite. So it would drive up our costs more. So we're boxed in by some of this language. And again, we need to have the same flexibility that the state has.
And I agree. But the law is, as it currently stands, just for the taxpayers at home watching, in order to join the Group Insurance Commission, the state insurance organization, you need 70% compliance or agreement with the unions. My question was, is it 70% of members, or is it 70% of the unions?
It's 70%. Each union has a weighted vote.
Certain ratio, okay.
Right. So the school teachers are the largest group. They're over 50%. So effectively, they would have, in that scenario, they would have veto power.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. Next motion by Council Caulfield. City Council requests the city manager to have the proper department address a depression in the roadway in the vicinity of 802, 810 Lawrence Street. Second by Council Murphy. Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I went up and looked at this depression in the road at Lawrence Street, 802, 810 Lawrence Street, and the depression is in front of condominiums that exist there. And I don't know whether the depression was caused by utilities installing gas lines, or was that depression caused by removing the curbing in order to get into the roadway, the driveway. But it needs to be addressed because it's sinking. And whoever did it did not fulfill or compact the fill, and there were two residents here who live in the condominiums, and they're the ones who asked me to file a motion. But I don't know who caused it, but it has to be addressed, so I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Elliott, request the City Council Finance Subcommittee meet jointly with the School Finance Subcommittee to address fiscal 2011 budget cuts. Second by Councilor Mendonça.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we really just had a discussion about the intent of this meeting. I wasn't aware that the Finance Subcommittee, the school was meeting, but I had to have conversations with members of that subcommittee in the past, and it seemed to make sense to have a dialogue of essentially those items that we have been talking about tonight, whether it's buyback, sick, and contract issues. So that's the intent of the motion. I'm wondering if it might be helpful, maybe on both sides of the aisle, if we could have a chart of those issues, collective bargaining issues that you were sort of just referring to, Mr. Manager, health insurance and cost of living and those things that are items that we need to take a look at and have discussions and try to pare back. Wonder if we could get at least that on the city side. I think it'll be helpful as we go into the budget discussions as well. So thank you. That's the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. I think it's a good motion. Every year at budget time, we talk about trying to have more communication and between the two bodies in terms of filling the needs of the kids and still providing the services on the city side. So I think it's a good motion. If we could somehow, and I don't know who would do this or who would produce it, but have an agenda for the meeting. I'm on this finance subcommittee. I think it's a good idea. If we could have some type of an agenda maybe, and also through you, Mr. Mayor, to maybe the solicitor, are there any ground rules we need to be aware of in terms of jurisdiction? Do we have to, as the city council, are we going to be infringing upon any of the school committee duties or decisions by getting into collective bargaining issues or anything that's, that is, the mayor and the school committee's job? Does that make any sense? I'm just concerned that if we start talking about or weighing in on things that we don't have a vote on, we may be crossing some lines.
Right, I can work with Mr. Moses and include that in a list of items. There are certain things that, whether they be in a CBA or whether they're just, management prerogative issues, and I'll outline those for the council as things to be aware of.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think as long as we know where we need to be on some of the issues, but I think it's a good idea to get some information, and we can all be aware what's going on the other side and the effects of the cuts coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. City Council requests the city auditor provide the City Council with a year-to-date report on the overtime costs. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just curious where we are. I know you provided us with a year-to-date recently, but I wonder if we could do this by department. And I don't know how many years, if you can go back for a couple of years to just for comparative purposes. I know that we've been making progress and cutting back in overtime, but it'd be nice to see by department where those impacts have been made. And it doesn't have to be 5 years. I think a 3-year trend might be helpful to, whether by police department. And I know snow and ice is a whole different ballgame, so I don't know how difficult it is to separate that out, Madam Auditor, if it's easy enough, and if not, then we'll go with it.
I could do that.
Okay.
I can do that. My question to you is, do you want the school department also? I mean, all departments? Do you want court time? Do you?
I think
Exactly what
if we can do all
like.
departments, not that I'm trying to infringe on any other department, but as we go into discussions about the budget and how cuts are going to impact not only the schools but the city side as well, I think it might be helpful. So if there's no objection from my colleagues, I think it would be beneficial to all of us to know exactly where these costs are and to find out how we can try to keep them down or reduce them.
Another question, grants?
What was the question, grants?
The question was grants.
Would you like grants also, or are you just talking about the general?
I was
General
just saying
fund?
the general fund primarily.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem.
thank you. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Martin. City Council requests the city manager report on the progress made on implementing recommendations contained in the most recent Department of Revenue report on city financial practices. Seconded by Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, Mr. Manager, you know better than us, when you first came in, there was a kind of top-to-bottom review by the Department of Revenue of financial practices in many aspects of the city. You know, the Treasurer's Office, really the whole financial operation, Auditor's Office. And there were recommendations in that report. We adopted a number of recommendations. We made significant progress on a lot of issues, I think, but I don't think we finished them all. And I think at least as of last time we talked about this in a comprehensive way, there were still open items on the list. So I think this is, I think the point here is to refresh our recollection as to how far we've come and see what progress we've made on. There were some issues that we're certainly going to need, we're not going to be fixed in a year and needed more comprehensive work. And so I'm curious to see, how we look to a kind of an outside independent group that's taken a look at our finances, told us what to do, and interested to see, what, if anything, remains to be done, or are we pretty much there?
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Oh, City Manager Lynch?
Just a brief comment. I'd be happy to get that, to put that report. We did do we've done an update of the DOR report internally, and I think we're in very good shape in terms of putting in place those recommendations. We do have some areas that still need work, some other things that have come up that tie in with some of those, particularly as relates to the management letter that we've received in the past. We've made very important strides there as well in addressing some of those issues, but issues remain, and we're actually working on a couple of further alterations of our organizational structure to address some of those issues as well, so that we'll include that in the report as well.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
Could we get a copy of the latest management letter, if we haven't already, for this fiscal year? Has the draft been completed or hasn't been released yet?
It's not finalized.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Council Martin. City Council requests the city manager report on the status of the new Merrimack River Bridge at Pawtucket Street and University Avenue. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What prompted this, I think we're all kind of disappointed to hear about the delay that's going to happen with the courthouse. And I think as much as we're disappointed, I think we certainly understand, given the condition that the state is in, if it's going to be a year delay, that's disappointing and less than ideal, but certainly not the end of the world either. The bridge, however, is, I think, in a different category. And I'm not suggesting that there's anything that it's off schedule or anything like that, because we certainly don't have any indication that that's the case. But, the existing bridge has, a useful life that's going to come to an end. And so I think, if you delay the courthouse a year, we still have an existing courthouse, we may not have that same luxury with the bridge. So just looking for a kind of a status report to see, where we are with the schedule, where the design is, and to make sure it's still moving forward. So any information, I think, to just keep the public informed would be welcome.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an excellent motion. The state can tell us that they won't build a courthouse for 2 more years. But the state can also tell us, shut that bridge down, the University Avenue Bridge, because it's no longer safe. And we just could not live with that. And this is an excellent motion. And I think, Mr. Manager, to lobby the Lowell delegation to make sure that the bonding for that bridge is intact, critical, very, very critical. I'm not saying it isn't, but I don't want to let them think that we're not
Paying attention.
worried about or concerned. So it's an excellent motion.
Thank you. City Manager Lynch?
I think it is certainly something that we're very concerned about, and we've been tracking regularly. The design is at about 75% at this point, which is basically complete. I do know, we had discussion at the Pawtuckettville Citizens Council. Representative Golden was there. I know that the mayor was there, as well as some of the other councilors. That all seems to be on track to still move forward with that. The city engineer has advised me that it's still moving forward to be put out to bid, later in this calendar year. So, but we will get a formal report for the council.
Thank you. Council Murphy?
Thank you. I just had a meeting today with the North Middlesex Planning Commission, at which the Department of Transportation said that as of now, everything's on schedule and ready to go. August, I think, is so.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that update. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Next motion by Councilor Dakota. City Council requests the city manager to report on efforts to reinforce minimum maintenance requirements, particularly changes or improvements resulting from inspectional services reorganization. Second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Dakota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I feel like we talk about this a lot, and I just want to make sure that we have a two-pronged approach as we're talking about finances over the next several months. So we're going to be talking about cost cutting, but business building is important. And for residents and business owners who spend a lot of effort caring for their homes and properties, this is really important issue for them. And we're going to be going into a very competitive time. Lowell competes for shoppers and homeowners and entrepreneurs. So I want to make sure that with the changes, the restructuring of the inspectional services, that this is a top priority. And I'm just curious if we send out letters with our tax bill informing of what the minimum maintenance requirements are, or if they're online.
We haven't done that in the past with the tax bill. There are oftentimes limitations on what the Department of Revenue allows you to place into a tax bill. Okay. But we can certainly look for ways to perhaps do that in another way, and perhaps even explore putting it out in the tax bill. So okay. I do think I did have a conversation with a large part of our multifamily. A large part of our problem with the minimum maintenance standards is in multifamily structures, and I did have a conversation very recently with again with Representative Golden regarding some different ideas that he had, and we're following up with some different aspects to that, tying in with the landlord association. But I think the reference you make to the restructuring of our inspectional services is going to make that a priority. That's an area that I think that we really we need to step up in terms of the enforcement of those codes.
And will there be a process that we can give to particularly homeowners or business owners that they can report on issues? And we can let them know what the process is? Absolutely,
and we do that. We have quite a bit of success with that over in Centerville. And I say success in terms of getting reports. Still a lot more work needs to be done in terms of getting results. In a large part, people have to understand that it isn't just because we receive a report or just because we even order someone to do something, it doesn't happen automatically. There are fines that have to be levied. There's a whole legal process that has to be gone through. So it doesn't happen overnight, but we need the residents working with us to use the eGov system, or just, if they don't feel comfortable with that, just notifying us by telephone call or email or letter, and we will follow up on those and track those. But we need to, again, we've had quite a bit of success in working with the people in Centerville on a system whereby they notify us of complaints regarding different properties.
I'm sorry, can I ask you one more question? Downtown in particular, is there a separate process that the historic board manages some of those minimum maintenances on the buildings?
There are some historic regulations that requires them to do some enforcement to ensure that historic properties are maintained, and that's done through the historic board. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. City Council requests the city manager to review the data on cost effectiveness of yard waste collection during the summer months and craft a plan accordingly. Seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just in light of the climate that we're facing, taking a look at an area for potential cost savings. I think if we review the data for looking at the volume of yard waste picked up versus what we pay per week, say, in finding that graphically where it's least effective, in looking at a plan to see whether or not we really ought to be cutting back on that service during the summer months, having maybe a central drop to that effect for people to drop off the minimum that they'll be producing, but to see whether or not we can provide that service more effectively without drastically reducing the service itself.
Thank you. Councilor Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my understanding, listening to Gunther Wellenstein speak at different neighborhood group meetings, and he does that quite regularly. It's unbelievable. I can't even keep up with him, but he did say that a way to save money on the yard waste would be that somewhere like from April to November, we picked up every single week. Perhaps with the costs now being like $11,000 a week in an effort to save money, perhaps we could go every other week with the pickup. And I mean, I like to get the maximum amount of service, but now we can't really be that, we have to be a little bit more frugal. So I think, I know when I cut my grass, I do that every other week. So I just have to get on the right system to know that this is the week I can put it out. So I have to coincide my schedule to meet that demand. And so that's probably a way that it could do it. And Gunther did suggest that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have 10,000 square feet of lawn, but I cut my lawn once a week, and I end up with a barrel of grass. And should I forget to put that barrel out, by the time I get it out for the next collection, the odor is unbelievable. So you have to get rid of the grass because it ferments and creates an ungodly odor. Now, this is part of the service people are paying for, $125 a year, I believe. Is that so, Mr. Manager?
Well, there's tax dollars that go to the service as well. There's a substantial amount of subsidy by the tax, by
Well,
the
you know,
general fund.
what I'm saying is you pick it up every other week. Some of my colleagues and some of my colleagues in the past, they have huge lawns. And, you know, there's going to be an outcry if we don't pick up that grass. It was part of the program when we implemented it and voted on it. And now if we want to change it in the middle of the stream, I don't know where we're going to go with that. But I'm not going to elaborate on it now. I'll wait for a report. Everything's expensive, everything. And to pick up the trash and the recycling, the refuge and so forth, but the grass, the yard waste was part of that program. And we can't look at changing the program. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we'll be inundated with phone calls. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Manager Lynch?
If I may, to the motion, it is in Councilor Mercier's motion, Councilor Mercier's comments. It is in fact something we are looking at, and I know Councilor Caulfield won't be happy to hear that, but it is something we're looking at of making modifications or making recommendations of modifications. As I said, the user fee that people pay is primarily geared towards picking up the amount of solid waste they have, not the amount of yard waste they have. The subsidy from the general fund to pay for trash services is substantial. The fee does not include all of the costs related to solid waste. I will also say that the data, and I don't have the firm numbers in front of me, but the data does, and we'll get that in a report for the council, but the data does indicate that there's very small amount of utilization of the yard waste service during the summer months. And I would also say that Lowell is one of the only communities that provides yard waste service during the summer months. Generally, it's spring cleanups and fall leaf pickups that communities provide yard waste service. It's not for not in the summer months, spring, summer, and early fall for grass clippings. What we try to encourage people to do, and Gunther has done a good job with this, and I'll certainly pass along your comments, Councilor Mercia, to him. He has done a good job of getting people to really get involved with composting of yard waste, whether it be grass clippings, leaves, and the like, and that's proven very successful in reducing the amount of yard waste that we generate.
Thank you. Council Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilor Caulfield. If we all of a sudden went to every other week, there are a lot of people that rely on this service, and there'd be a lot of complaint. I know, myself, I think I generate in the summer months more yard waste than regular waste. I could probably, one bag of garbage usually every week, but, probably 2 or 3 of lawn clippings. But I didn't hear that the motion was to go from 1 week to every other week. It's not what I heard. It's to look at what the data says and look if there's a more cost-effective way to provide the service, which I think is incumbent on us to do. So I don't want people to, if I'm wrong, if this is really a disguise about going from 1 week to 2 weeks, then I'd have more to say, but I'm willing to keep an open mind and see what the report says, because there may well be a more cost-effective way to do this. But I do think there are a substantial number of people in the city that do expect to have this service.
Thank you. Councilman Danza?
Well, at least for some minimal savings, I think, as the manager mentioned, composting, I was going to bring that up. If we're disposing of this by weight, this kind of waste is heavy, and it's going to cost us more than some of the other waste we produce. So anything we can do to encourage composting so that it stays on the property and they get to reuse it, I think would be a great benefit. So maybe if we could have a renewed effort from Mr. Wellenstein to go out once again and push the composting and what the city can offer to help, it might help in at least our tipping charges when we try to get rid of the waste.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. Last motion of the evening by Councilor Murphy. Request the City Council join other cities and towns in support of the Update Bottle Bill, House Bill number 3515 and Senate Bill number 1480. Second by Councilman Danza. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a piece of legislation that is before the State House, which would apply 5-cent deposit to bottles that aren't now covered by that normal deposit that's applied right now to Coke bottles, beer bottles. I guess it's pretty good timing given the holiday tomorrow, but it's been proven on deposit containers to produce a recycling rate of anywhere between 75 and 80%. On those containers that do not have a deposit, the rate is somewhere around 20%. So it would result in an increase of anywhere from 55 to 60% of the recycling rate. What isn't recycled would then produce a revenue stream back to the Commonwealth that would, in fact, 10 million of which, the estimated $20 million, 10 million would go towards relief for water and sewer rates, and the rest would be redistributed into local cities and towns to support their recycling programs, and in turn realize even greater cost savings within the programs. So I think from the standpoint of neighborhoods, where they would be looking at a decrease in litter anywhere of 60 to 65%, and from the standpoint of the city, trying to gain some more revenue to support, like I say, that the recycling program, and get some water and sewer rate relief, that I think this is an important piece of legislation, particularly in these times.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Councilor Murphy. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to vote on this tonight?
No,
I think that's what the motion is.
well,
Joint.
there is a draft resolution before each councilor that I would refer to the law department for a formal draft to either be referred back to the council or referred to the environmental subcommittee if that's.
Oh. I'll tell you right up front, I'm not going to support it, whether it goes to the law department or we vote on it tonight. It's another tax. I paid 18 cents, Mr. Mayor, I was in Boston last week. I bought a bottle of water. I paid 18 cents tax on the water. 18 cents for a bottle of water. And the bottle of water costs $2. My family, we purchase sometimes 2 cases of water, 48 bottles of water, because we need it for medical reasons. It's a nickel in every bottle. You're going to have a tax on Gatorade and every other soft drink that's out there. We buy soda, it's a nickel deposit. We put it in a recycle barrel. We don't run back to Demoulas's to recycle the bottles for 5 cents. Can you imagine the impact? At your local supermarket, someone brings back 96 water bottles. Now, it's another tax. People are fed up with it, and I'm not going to support it. It's just ridiculous. And if I do support it, I know I'm going to have an awful lot of phone calls. You just can't, that's all I got.
What's the wish of the council? Councilor Mendoza?
Yes, on the motion. I think it's well-intentioned, but I would agree that I personally see it as another tax in the sense that the state is relying on the fact that people don't redeem what they've charged the deposit for. I mean, that's probably that 20% of what we already pay deposit on. And by extending it to this, they'll extend their revenue. So in that sense, I see it as a tax. I'm also, from looking around the city, the initial bottle bill cleaned up a lot of pollution, but I don't see a lot of bottles of water around. I mean, I see cups from some of our fast food restaurants, but not plastic bottles and things of that nature. So I don't see the immediate benefit of doing something like this. It would be an inconvenience to our citizens, and as I really believe, an additional tax, and the revenues will be spent on other things. So I will not support it for that reason.
Thank you. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been somewhat outspoken about getting ourselves into debates about things that really aren't before us. And this goes way back to our debate on the Patriot Act, which I thought was an ill-conceived vote, because I think Congress was going to do what it was going to do with the Patriot Act, regardless of what the Lowell City Council said. And I think the legislature is going to do what it's going to do with the bottle bill, regardless of what the Lowell City Council said. Now, I know earlier in the year, I'm the one who sponsored a motion for banning text messaging, but that was home rule. I think that was something that the council was willing to do within the city limits if the legislature didn't act, and ultimately the legislature did act. And I think there was a coalition of communities pushing for that, or at least pushing for that home rule power. This is not I don't think, intended to go push for home rule power. This is to get the legislature to act, and frankly, I don't think they care a whole lot. I mean, this is going to be a huge lobbying effort on Beacon Hill with pros and cons, environmentalists and beverage industry and variety stores and things. I'm sure all those interests need to be weighed in. I do appreciate the intent behind the motion. I'd be interested at least to learn some more about it at the environmental subcommittee. But, you know, given what I've had to say in the past, I'd be, you know, extremely unlikely to support something like this. That we're not calling for a home rule bottle bill here, just in Lowell, I assume. And if we're not, then I really don't see the point of having, you know, a divided council vote on something that is not going to matter a whole lot, no matter how we vote. And we have serious issues ahead of us, budget and otherwise, that are going to require a lot of attention. We're going to have our disagreements about those, so I don't think we need to go looking for other things. So, I'm ignorant on this particular piece of legislation. Be happy to study it in the subcommittee, but I don't see that it's going to be a benefit to us here at the council.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. I think sometimes things look good on paper, but in all practical sense, they don't work. And to some degree, I'm not sure the bottle bill does work now, or maybe it did back in '82, but it has outlived its life. I see this, it is somewhat, if it's not a tax, it's certainly another burden on the consumer, where I think right now people go to New Hampshire and buy their soda, or in large part they go to buy their soda, beer, and water bottles. I don't think we need to give any more reason to send them anywhere outside of the state. So it might make some sense, but it's certainly not an incentive for me, or I think most consumers. If you go to the market baskets or the Demoulas, you don't see a long line of people, you know, putting their recyclables in to get a rebate. So I'm not going to support it. I think it's well intended from environmental perspective, but I think recycling is going in the right direction here. We see it at, certainly at our fields where there are bins, and there's a great effort to do that. I know Parks and Rec and DPW are looking to, you know, implement a new program in the future where, you know, garbage in, garbage out, you take your own. So I think it's well intended, but I'm not going to support it.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a well-intended motion. You've heard that a number of times. I think the timing is tough now because people see this as a tax. People are going to say, all right, now the burden's on me to collect these separately, bring them back to the store with my kids or whatever they're doing, food shopping, and return these things, and people aren't likely to do it. So it does put an onus on the consumer, but I don't know a whole lot about this. This was the first piece of information I've seen on it. I did see the motion, but I don't know a whole lot about it. It makes sense, and if the maker of the motion wanted to amend the motion to send it to the subcommittee for more information, I'd like to know, because there may be some pieces of information in here that we can use for the recycling program, in terms of how can we capture more of our recycling and some of these items that don't have the bottle bill on it. I mean, the difficulty I see is people that recycle, people that don't. And the bottle bill, what it does is I find people outside my house looking for the bottle, the ones that are worth a nickel and the ones that aren't stay. So if I'm not recycling, it's going in my trash, and I don't. May have an issue with that stuff too, with people going through that. But I think it's a well-intended motion, and I think we should take a look at it in terms of maybe there's some pieces of the logic behind it that we can use. But I think it would be a tough burden to put on people at this time, as a way for the state to raise more money.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. Again, it's not a tax, it's a deposit. So there is, really an option of whether or not you redeem that. The numbers here are pretty clear, that when you have a deposit on a container, it's being recycled at a rate of 75 to 80%. When you don't have a deposit on a container, it's being recycled at a rate of 20%. So many of these arguments were first made when the bill went into effect in 1982. Problems with going to New Hampshire, problems with whether or not people would actually recycle. But again, the numbers are clear. With a deposit, we're getting a rate of 75 to 80%. Without, we're getting a rate of 20%. And whether or not we gain any revenue from that, what is really the crucial part of it is that the failure to enact something like this, which is essentially applying a deposit to the same bottle, but discriminating on the basis of what is inside that bottle. In the essential part is that you're removing that litter of 60 to 65% at least from our neighborhoods, which I walk everywhere all over the city, and I certainly still see many of these bottles all over the place, whether they be in parks, canals, or the streets themselves. So the intention, I think, was good, but I think it is also good policy because it's about what does happen here in the city. But I appreciate the response and would certainly move to refer it to the environmental subcommittee.
So motion to amend the motion by the original maker of the motion to send it to the environmental subcommittee by Councilor Mercier. Any further discussion on sending it to the environmental subcommittee? Hearing none, all those in favor of sending it to the environmental subcommittee signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. Anything else to come before the council this evening?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Coffey.
I would ask my colleagues for suspension of the rules to bring in a motion. Had I known about this issue Friday, I would have brought the motion in then.
Okay, motion by Councilor Caulfield to suspend the rules, second by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor of the suspension, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Rules have been suspended. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you for allowing me to bring this motion, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have lived in my neighborhood for close to 48 years, and I have seen floods, and I've seen Black Brook go across Princeton Boulevard and so forth. But I've never, ever witnessed the flooding by Black Brook as I have this past weekend. 8 homes were flooded severely. There were 4 families, maybe 6 families evacuated on Pratt Avenue. Portions of Princeton Boulevard are still closed this evening, Mr. Mayor. Pratt Avenue is closed. Middlesex Street is out, a portion of that was closed as well. I honestly believe, Mr. Manager, there is something wrong with the culvert system that feeds Black Brook into the Merrimack River, and I would like the city engineer or state agencies to investigate to see if there's an obstruction or whether we need to put in a larger culvert. The brook just rises 2 or 3 feet in a matter of no time at all. And there's a gentleman in the neighborhood, Mr. Kelly, who would stop by there and clean out the culvert, and you wouldn't believe the debris that he has removed from the culvert. But on Middlesex Street, where the Black Brook goes across Middlesex Street that was flooded severely. I mean, really severely, 1.5 feet of water. Hadley Park, Mr. Manager, is 4 feet deep in right field. 4 feet. And it goes all the way up to the apron of the infield. So I honestly believe the same thing that has happened in Clay Pit Brook is happening here. And we almost lost the pumping station on Princeton Boulevard, and only because of the actions of an employee to remove the storm drain, that pumping station would have went down, and many homes would have had horrible flooding, including mine. But, Mr. Manager, if we could look to see if a state agency, get the city engineers involved, to see if there's an obstruction, or if those culverts aren't big enough, or there's something radically wrong with the way Black Brook flows into the Merrimack River. And the condominiums across the street from me, the parking lot was a foot deep of water, and Black Brook Drive on Wood Street, that was flooded out as well. So there's something radically wrong with the system of draining Black Brook into the Merrimack River, and my neighbors and my wife would certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Mr. Manager, I was going to call you tomorrow, but something of a similar vein on Newhall Street. There are some residents and businesses there that have never been flooded to the extent they did this time. Could you look into that too? I know there was some CSO work, maybe that had something to do with, there's a brook over there as well, but I was going to give you a call anyway, but along the same lines.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor and councilors, we are aware of both of those situations. The Black Brook one, we identified at the last storm a couple of weeks ago, and we've been doing some work on it, but it was a very serious problem. I did hear about the Newhall Street earlier today, so we will be working on, the city engineer is already working on both of those, but certainly we will get the council a report.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? I'm sorry, Councilor Mendoza?
Well, just, I mean, some of this information should be collected to help our case against Denell, because all of those areas above the dam, and if those boards are not failing like they're supposed to, they're holding back more water and that's going to back up into the brooks. So I think any information we have to show that, you know, it's affecting our neighborhoods well beyond that one property that has the deed restriction may help our case.
Good point. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Anything else to come before? Motion to adjourn by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Elliott. Again, nice meeting. Good night, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Yes. Stay tuned.